Imagine that someone told you, with absolute certainty, that this is your last morning. Now, notice, quickly, what instantly stops mattering. The grudge, the unanswered slight, the thing you were anxious about an hour ago. Watch how fast the list of what matters shrinks to almost nothing. And how clear, how undeniable, the few things left on it become. The Stoics built a whole practice on that list. They said it was the most honest thing about a life. You have followed Gaius from the hurry of his borrowed hours to the long exile of his someday. This is where his road, and ours, finally arrives. Because beneath the comparison and the inherited voice, and the old guilt, beneath every inner war, there runs one last war, the one that gives all the others their weight. The war with time running out, the quiet refusal to look at the fact that you will die. Gaius had learned to be present and to begin, but there was one door he had never opened, one fact he had spent his whole life arranging not to see, that he was mortal, that the hours were genuinely finite. He had improved his life in every way but the one that gave all the others their meaning. He had never once truly looked at his own ending. What Gaius wanted, now that he had woken up to his life, was to not waste the rest of it. But he was caught in a trap that catches everyone who reaches this point. To take his finite time seriously, he had to think about its end, and every time he did, the thought did not sharpen him. It frightened him. It threatened to curdle his new presence into a low, constant dread. So he did what almost all of us do. He chose, again and again, to simply not think about it, to push the door shut and busy himself with living. And that worked, as it works for everyone, right up until it did not, until a sleepless hour, or an illness, or the death of a friend would fling the door open and leave him shaking. He had only two settings, it seemed. Forget that he would die, or be terrified of it. Neither one helped him live, but the Stoics offered a third way, and it is the strangest and most powerful thing they ever taught. They did not forget death, and they did not cower before it. They turned, deliberately, and faced it, every day, on purpose, in calm. Memento mori, they said. Remember that you will die, not as a curse muttered in the dark, as a discipline, as of all things, a gift. And when Gaius finally turned and looked, steadily, at his own mortality, he discovered the secret the Stoics had been pointing at all along. Memento mori is not really about death at all. Death is not the lesson. Death is only the lamp. You hold the fact of your ending up against your one ordinary day, and suddenly you can see that day clearly. What in it is precious, and what in it is noise. Think of it as an editor. A life left unedited sprawls. Every petty grievance given equal weight to every act of love. The urgent and the trivial all jumbled together at the same volume. The awareness of death is the editor that walks through the whole manuscript of your day and, without sentiment, strikes out everything that does not matter. What survives that pen is what is real. Death does not threaten the good life. It reveals it. And what survived for Gaius, when he ran that pen honestly across his days, was almost laughably simple. The people he loved, the work that was truly his, the plain beauty of a morning, kindness, given and received. That was nearly the whole list. Everything he had spent his anxious years chasing and dreading, and comparing fell away as the noise it had always been. The lamp of his mortality showed him, at last, where his one life actually was. Marcus Aurelius, who reminded himself of death on nearly every page he wrote, set down the other half of it. Each of us, he said, lives only in the present, this fleeting instant. The past is spent and gone. The future is hidden and unknown. The longest life and the shortest come to the same thing. Because the only moment any of us can ever lose or ever live is this one. You do not possess your years. You possess this breath. And here something strange happened to the fear. When Gaius stopped fleeing death and let it stand calmly beside him as a daily companion, it slowly lost its terror. The dread had come all along, not from death itself, but from the avoiding of it, the lifelong effort of keeping that door shut. The thing he had been running from turned out to be far gentler, met face to face, than it had ever been chasing him from behind. There was a cost, and it was the opposite of the one he expected. He had thought facing death would cost him his peace. Instead, it asked him to give up his forgetting, to carry the truth of his own ending with him every day, in plain view, rather than hiding it in a back room. That is a heavier thing to hold. But a man who holds it wastes nothing, and clings to nothing, and is afraid of almost nothing. The weight, it turned out, was also the freedom. Here is where the whole long road arrives. Gaius learned to meet an ordinary morning as if it were his last, and, in the very same breath, as if it were his first, the last, so that nothing in it was wasted, nothing taken for granted, every plain detail seen as the rare and ending thing it truly is. The first, so that it came to him fresh, unburdened, full of a child's uncomplicated wonder. Last and first, at once. That is how the Stoics learned to hold a day. And out of that, slowly, something the Stoics reached for grew in him. Not mere acceptance of his fate, but something warmer and more daring. Ah, yes to it. To the whole given thing. The finite span, the ordinary days, the losses already suffered, and the loss still to come. Not because it was painless, but because it was his, the only life he was ever offered. And a man can spend his last stretch of it raging at its limits, or he can love what he was actually given. From there, the wars that had ruled his life simply quieted. The scoreboard he once measured himself by went silent, because a man counting his last mornings does not care who is ahead. The borrowed voices lost their authority, the old guilt its grip, the someday its excuse. Held up against the lamp of the end, they were all revealed as what they had always been. Noise between him and the life that was actually here. So picture him on a single ordinary morning, near the end of all this. Nothing special about the day. The same light he had hurried through 10,000 times. The same plain room. The same waking household. The same warm cup. But Gaius sat in it now as a man who knew, fully and without flinching, that his mornings were numbered and that this was one of them. And that knowledge did not darken the morning. It made it almost unbearably bright. He did not know if it was his last morning. It might have been. It might not. That was never the point. The point was that he could meet it as if it were, and as if it were his first, and in doing so, finally be wholly inside the only life he had. The clock was still running. It always would be, for all of us, down to the final grain. But Gaius had stopped fighting it, and started, at last, living by its honest light. And so, on that ordinary, irreplaceable morning, Gaius did the only thing left to do. He did not count the days behind him. He did not chase the days ahead. He did not flee the end or pretend it away. He drank the warmth and felt the light and looked with love at the brief and ordinary and astonishing life he had been given. And then he set down the cup and rose and simply, fully began.